Welcome to Trailblazers and Titans with your host, Dr. Keith Haney. Trailblazers and Titans is your go-to podcast for insights, inspiration, and actionable advice from the world's most successful entrepreneurs and leaders. Each episode features in-depth interviews with industry pioneers, innovative thinkers, and business moguls who share their journeys, challenges, and strategies for success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned leader, or someone looking to make a significant impact, this podcast provides the tools and motivation to blaze your trail and become a titan in your field. Tune in to learn, grow, and transform your vision into reality.
Our guest today is Dr. Debi Silber, a trailblazer in the field of betrayal recovery and transformation. She is the founder and CEO of PBT Institute, Post Betrayal Transformation, and the visionary behind National Forgiveness Day, celebrated annually on September 1st. She is a two-time international best-selling author, an award-winning speaker, and host of globally ranked podcasts From Betrayal to Breakthrough, which ranks in the top 1.5% of podcasts worldwide. Her groundbreaking PhD research uncovered 3 discoveries that completely changed how we understand and heal from betrayal, redefine the timeline and process of recovery. Through her evidence-based framework, she certifies practitioners around the world to help others move past betrayal and reclaim their health, relationships, confidence, and happiness. She is featured on Fox, CBS, Dr. Oz Show, the TEDx twice, and she's here today to share her powerful insights on healing, forgiveness, and transformation. We're honored to welcome her to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So I'm going to ask you my favorite question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You know, I don't know who said it, but if there's an idea you have, it's yours to do.
So what does that mean to you in your life in terms of how you've applied that to kind of your existence?
For me, it meant that if I get an idea for something, I really need to take that seriously. And I've learned that I actually do a few things. If I have an idea and I really want to do it, but then it just seems too hard or whatever, I have 2 scenarios that I picture. One is I picture that idea now in a thought bubble, and someone else looks at that same thought bubble and they grab it. And I'm like, oh, wait a second, that was mine. And if that doesn't get me, I picture when my kids are younger anyway, sitting my 4 kids down and saying, yeah, you know that idea I had, it was too hard. And they're looking at me like, what? That's all you got, Mom? And if one doesn't get me, usually the other one does.
I love that. I'm always curious, people like yourself who've gone on this journey for a while, who are some people in your life who served as a mentor or inspiration for you along the way?
Yeah, I would have to say, and this may sound crazy, but the people who have hurt me the most have been my greatest teachers. I have learned so much what not to do, the damage that's caused by saying or doing hurtful things. So I've learned a tremendous amount from those experiences and from the people who've hurt me. I've definitely had positive role models in my life, but the most profound ones that stick out the most are those.
Because you deal with betrayal, and it's kind of one of the most misunderstood emotions out there in terms of trauma, what is it that makes it so uniquely damaging compared to other forms of trauma?
Yeah. Well, I did a PhD study on it. Certainly you don't do something like that unless you don't study betrayal unless you have to. And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries. One was that betrayal is in fact a different type of trauma. And, I remember asking my study participants saying, if you've been through other traumas, does betrayal feel different for you? And unanimously, they said it's so different. Here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Let's say, for example, you lose someone you love. You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost, life will never be the same. But you don't necessarily go back and question the relationship. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So that betrayal shatters the self as well as the life you've had before. So it makes it a very different experience.
That's interesting. I'm curious about that because when you mentioned that, it made me think about we always get that thing that, time heals all wounds. That doesn't seem probably true with betrayal. Why is that?
Yeah, and that was another thing about the study. The study proved that time does not heal all wounds. I've had over 100,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. And a few things about that. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. Feels like it happened yesterday. So we know we cannot count on time. We can't even count on a new relationship to heal it. Unless and until we intentionally and deliberately heal it, it will follow us around in our work, in our health, in our relationships. And happy to share some stats from the post-betrayal syndrome quiz, or
please do. Just do that.
Yeah, sure. So now imagine men and women, just about every country's represented, over 100,000 people. And as much as I'm going to share the stats, here are these numbers. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. 94% deal with painful triggers, and if you've ever had a trigger, they're debilitating. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you may be emotionally eating, using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that could be anything: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, you name it. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed, 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate, you have, let's say, a gut issue, you still have to work, you still have to raise your kids. That's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness, 83% are very angry, and you're going to go back and forth between those two all day long. I'll just read a few more. 79% are stressed. This one killed me. This is why I wrote my book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. Think about what an inability to trust will do for you in work, in your relationships. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. What's even more staggering about these numbers, you didn't hear me say one thing, 20%, 30%, they're super high. They're also not representative of a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are walking around with symptoms decades later because of something left unhealed. The good news is you can heal from all of it. And that was the third discovery.
So let's talk about that. How do we heal from it?
Yeah, well, the way to heal is to move through the proven, predictable 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. That was the third discovery. And what we learned was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, if we are to completely heal, we will move through these 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we now know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable.
So let's walk through those. I'm dying to get our audience into those 5 stages. I'm sure a lot of people out there have dealing with that regret, dealing with that betrayal. So let's kind of walk through those 5 stages.
Yeah, sure. And that is all we do within the PBT Institute. It's what I certify all of our coaches in. I'll give you a real brief rundown of the stages. So stage 1 is before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and mental, thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. If a table only has 2 legs, it's going to be easy for that table to topple over. That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest out of all of the stages, and it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, you've ignited the stress response. You're now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You just can't understand what just happened. This makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that govern us, that prevent chaos. Trust this person, don't go there. These are the rules. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've been following is no longer true. The bottom has bottomed out on you, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Who can I trust? Right? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck. Here's why. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4. We don't know there's a stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know that, we plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we do. And 4 things start to happen. The first thing is we start getting all of those small self benefits. We get to be right. We love being right. We get our story. We love our story, right? We don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story with, too. And on some level, we're not getting much else, so we take it. So we plant deeper roots. And now, because we're here longer than we should be, the mind starts doing things like, maybe you're not that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now, because these are the thoughts we're thinking, this is the energy we start putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now we start attracting circumstances and people and experiences towards us to confirm, yep, this is where you belong. And here's where we'll join that lame support group. And now we found our people. So we will actually sabotage our success. Here's where we may go to therapy. If that therapist isn't highly skilled in betrayal, you're going to feel heard, validated, understood. You're not an inch closer to healing. Here's where we may be healing, but we're afraid to outgrow our betrayer. So we sabotage ourselves because we're afraid. And it gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go, right here we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever, just to help us get through the day. And, think about it. We do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing or that drinking you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? They look at me like I'm crazy. It's going to happen 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And we do love to survive. We just want to get to the point where the pain stops, where we can move forward. We can just somehow just live life like it doesn't matter. How do you help people break through that stage where they're just stuck there? Because if you're comfortable, you don't feel the need to have to change. How do you create that sense of crisis and say, okay, I got to get out of this stage. It's not healthy for me.
Yeah. And this is the hardest spot to leave, because some people have been there for decades and they can't imagine anything other than surviving their experience. But what's happening is when you're in stage 3, and I'll get you to stages 4 and 5, when you're in stage 3, you're medicating and suppressing symptoms. Life kind of stinks. It's okay. You're surviving it. You're not happy in your work. You're not happy in your relationships. You're not happy in your health's not that great, but you're managing all of it. And the longer you're there, the longer you don't, the more you can't even conceive of anything better. Getting through your day is now the goal, and that's it. You know what it's like? Here's an easy way to imagine it. Imagine 2 best friends, and they're both 30 pounds overweight. They're both fine, right? They're both totally fine. They put themselves together. They look good. It's not stopping them from doing anything. But one day, one friend says to the other, I'm so done. I'm just done with this. I'm going to go on this healthy eating journey, and I'm going to start working on it. I'm going to lose the weight and feel really good. And she does. And she now is able to experience life where she's choosing clothes she wants versus what fits. She has the extra energy. She's feeling great. Whatever it is that those 30 pounds off has done for her, right? But she says to the other friend, come on, it's so good here. And the other friend's like, I'm fine. And the truth is, she is, right? She has no idea what it feels like with those 30 pounds off. Same thing here. If people in stage 3 had any idea how great it felt in stages 4 and 5, they wouldn't waste a minute there. So what I try and do, and what I have my coaches do, is let them know that. Because when they truly understand that the only things they have access to is more of the same. Like, for example, someone is so miserable, they're so unhappy, they're so lonely. Let's say it's a breakup, and then the relationship ends. They just want to, fill that loneliness. Well, the only person they have access to is someone similar. So they're going to relive another version of the same thing, right? So what I try and do is let them know that's all you have access to. You've been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to get to stages 4 and 5, because when you're in stages 4 and 5, you see things from that perspective. You make decisions from that perspective, and you have access to stage 4 or 5 people. You can't have access to that when you're stuck in stage 3.
I love it. Stage 4 you have is the new normal, the adjusting part. How do you make sure that, because you've been so comfortable in stage 3 that you don't regress and go back to stage 3, because even though the new stage 4 and 5 feel better, there's still that tendency to kind of be back to the comfortable. So how do you help people not slide back into?
Yeah. Well, so let me get you to stage 4. If you grieve, if you're willing to let go of the story, a bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. Here's where you acknowledge, I can't change what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stopped the massive damage that was going on in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not cozy yet, but it's this sort of hopeful excitement. It feels like that. But, think about it. If you were to move, you don't bring everything with you. You don't bring the things that don't represent who you're now ready to become. And what I found was there's this one spot as people go from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, they're not coming along. That lame support group, you're done. That therapist who is just going over the same thing with you over and over, you're done. The betrayer that you were trying to just make it work with, you're done. And people ask me all the time, Dr. Debi, is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. If they don't rise, they don't come along. So you're moving into stage 4, and it's this hopeful excitement. It's very forward moving, but not action oriented around researching narcissism and cheating, this and that. No, it's about, what do I need now? So you're rebuilding and recreating a new version of you. That's what's going on in stage 4. So to answer your question, you feel it when you're slipping back in those stage 3, any sort of stage 3 ways, you're catching it because stage 4 feels so much better.
Get it. And stage 5 is?
So stage 5 is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. So the body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. The mind is healing. You're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on the road you just traveled. And you have a whole new worldview based on everything you see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of that table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
I'm curious, suppose someone's gone through this and moved on to the new stage 5 and they're recovered from the betrayal. What happens when it happens to them again? Because we know that sometimes you can get out of this and all of a sudden you move beyond that last one, but then all of a sudden there's a new person now who betrays you.
Yeah. There are a few ways to answer this, because first of all, you don't attract the same type of people you did before. Your energy is much different. You're just a different person, and you're just not an energetic match for someone like that. So that's one thing. The other thing is your BS meter is so sharpened and so strong that you smell that stuff from a mile away. And the third thing would be, if for whatever reason it did happen, you have the tools and resources that it could never take you down like it did the first time.
I love that. So kind of walk us through when you get a new client, kind of what's the process of you helping them to walk through these stages?
Yeah. So, within the PBT Institute, so the pbtinstitute.com, we have our signature program, which is Reclaim. And they come in, everything is numbered according to what stage. You self-assess. So within a minute, if you're in stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, whatever. And you're going to live daily classes with our certified coaches. You have private sessions with them. There's open Q&A with me. There's our signature program, which literally moves you through the 5 stages. If the research proved it works, it's in there. If it proved it did not, it's not. And all of the coaches that I certify are all amazing at the 5 stages, but some really specialize in one stage over another. Like in the beginning, in stage 2, you've just been shocked, right? Your nervous system is completely dysregulated. We have a coach that is so good at those stage 2 things. But then as you're healing, then we have, you're really moving through the stage 4, stage 5, like who am I ready to become now? We have our mindset coach and our self-growth coach. So they're all certified in the 5 stages. But they move along. You choose a coach based on really what stage you're in and where you're at. We even have a program for the betrayer as well, and different community. So there's no triggering whatever. And these are people who are ready to become someone they're proud of. And it's a separate program. They meet with our coaches. They have their own curriculum. They meet with me, and I'm not easy on them. There's no shaming or blaming. But I'm not letting them get away with any of it. And we have one partner going through our rebuild. That's the betrayer program. Our reclaim is for the betrayed, and they meet up again as 2 very different people. It's beautiful.
Because you've sold this internationally, you've tested this across different cultures. Have you found that it's more effective in some cultures or with groups than others, or some that's more difficult with some groups than others?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually just recently launched, we have a global initiative where some of my PBT coaches, because we're global, we have people from all over the world, but we understand that there are different cultures and customs and languages that, we're not in. So I have 3 of our certified coaches, 1 in Kenya, 1 in Vietnam, and 1 in the Middle East. And we have the program converted into those languages and taught according to those cultures and customs. So it's a very different experience. Like, for example, what our PBT coach in the Middle East is doing is very different than our PBT coach in Kenya or Vietnam, only because it's a different, it's just different kind of rules, different ways. And this way, anybody in those areas can have the best of the best, because this work is not represented. It's not there. It's not in these countries, but it needs to be. We're slowly bringing it there.
Yeah, I'm curious, in the Middle East, what are some of the things you've noticed as maybe challenges doing it there than versus maybe here in America?
It's very different, because it's almost, and I remember having a conversation with my coach from the Middle East, and she said, it's almost assumed that betrayal is going to happen. So I am certainly not nearly as qualified to deal with that as she is, right? Because what do you mean assumed? So not in my head. So she's proficient at that, and is just works with the Middle Eastern clients so beautifully. It's a very different experience.
Yeah, I would imagine. You also mentioned that you work with the betrayer. I'm curious, how does that work look for someone who either are they like unaware sometimes that they've betrayed, or they are aware and they don't seem to care? I mean, kind of tell me what that work looks like as you work with the betrayer.
Yeah, well, they're aware. They made it, and this wasn't like a mistake. This was a choice.
This was a choice,
and a very painful one. And they have shattered the heart and the trust of the very person that loves them the most, and they love the most. And betrayal will show you who someone is. It also has the opportunity to wake them up to who they temporarily became. And when that's the case, they're ready to become someone very, very different. And so certainly this would not be a program for the betrayer who's just sort of on to the next and blaming someone else for their actions. This is someone who's like, what in the world did I just do? And there's a tremendous amount of change that I see with them. And at first I was wondering, I'm like, do I even want to work with them? Is this going to be too triggering for me? And it's very rewarding, because just as the betrayed absolutely transforms when they move into stages 4 and 5, so does the betrayer as they become someone new. And it's beautiful to watch. And it's beautiful to watch these 2.0 relationships that emerge when they're both through the program.
So I love what you're describing, because what you're describing sounds to me like transformation. We hear a lot today of the term resilience. How do you distinguish between resilience and transformation? It seems like your goal of your program is transformation, not just to become resilient. Because it seems like stage 3 is kind of resilient, but stage 5 seems more transformational.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I'm going to explain it in an analogy, and I use this one. I believe it was in my the second TEDx talk, Do You Have Post Betrayal Syndrome? And I gave this analogy of a house. Here's the difference between resilience and transformation. Resilience to me is restoring, bringing back, right? Transformation is a whole different thing. So imagine an old house, and imagine if the house needs a new roof, and you get a roof. That would be resilience. You're restoring it. Or let's say it needs a new door. You get a new door. That's resilience. You're restoring. Here's trauma and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels the house. New roof's not going to fix it. New door's not going to fix it, right? Now, you have every right to cry and scream and mourn the loss of your house, right? And stand at the lot where your house once stood. And you can tell everybody, isn't this the worst thing you've ever seen? You'd be right. You don't have to do anything. However, should you choose to rebuild your house, you don't have to. But if you choose to, why in the world would you build the same one? There's nothing there, right? Why not give it everything the old house didn't have? Make it better, more beautiful. That's the opportunity. That's the opportunity in betrayal. Life as you had known it is gone. So the opportunity is intentionally and deliberately creating something entirely new that you wouldn't have had access to had the experience, not happened. That's trauma well served.
I love that. So your book basically is in 3 parts. Part 1 is kind of understanding betrayal. You kind of lay that out. We just covered a lot of part 2, which is the 5 stages. Part 3 is now the moving beyond the new you. You have a term I want you to dig into for me. Energy vampires. Tell us what that is.
Yeah. So you're talking about the book Trust Again?
Yeah, Trust Again.
That was a couple of books ago. Okay. So energy vampires, these are the people that just suck the living life out of you. And you know it by how you feel. When you're with them, when you leave that experience, you're going to feel drained, depleted, exhausted, because they're siphoning your energy, as opposed to when you're spending time with people where you feel energized, uplifted, better for having spent time with them. Those people are good for you. So now no one's going to be everything all the time, of course. But if you're with someone and you are constantly feeling exhausted and drained and spent, they're siphoning your energy. That's an energy vampire.
So tell us about your new book.
Yeah, well, that was Trust Again. And after Trust Again was From Hardened to Healed, which is just for stage 3. After that was the Rebuild Roadmap, and that was just for the betrayers. And my most recent book is the Betrayal Recovery Roadmap. And that's actually for companies and for those who work, because it's how does betrayal impact you at work?
Oh, wow.
Because we have so many people coming into the PBT Institute saying, I can't hold it together. I'm going to lose my job. I'm making mistakes. I can't focus. I'm not creative. I'm not productive. So the Betrayal Recovery Roadmap is specifically for companies to realize that they're spending so much money and time on stress-related issues and disorders, which would be healed if someone moved through the stages. They're spending so much on, let's say, some sort of therapy or something, where if someone had access to the PBT Institute, they would move through the stages. They would retain such great talent. And the employee or team member would just get back their energy, their productivity, their morale, their all of it. And that's what happens when they move through the stages.
Yeah, I'm looking at your book, and you have down there some wonderful stats that people have to say, if you don't think it's impacting your company, here are some statistics to kind of show you that. Kind of give us some of the ones that stood out to you in your research that you really kind of push on, kind of highlight when you talk about what it's doing to you, your productivity and your employees.
Well, that's it. I mean, think about it. It's like one of the most expensive things is hiring and training new talent. And it's very often they're just completely checked out, or they're disengaged. They can't help it. They're doing their best to leave it outside of the workplace, but it's impossible. It's impossible. A betrayal doesn't do that. You can't just leave it outside of your workplace. It's going to follow you around. I mean, think about it. Let's say, even just with trust, the person you trusted the most just proved untrustworthy. How do you trust the boss, the coworker, that collaborative partner? You see, or your confidence was shattered in the betrayal. So how do you have the confidence to sell your whatever you're selling, right? How do you put yourself out there? Your confidence is completely destroyed. So it's one of those things that's hitting companies so hard, and they don't look at betrayal as a possible reason. They talk about psychological safety in the workplace and that kind of thing, but it's the betrayal from outside. And it could be a workplace betrayal as well, but it's so often what happens outside of the workplace greatly impacts the workplace.
So who is this book targeting? Is this targeting HR department, or is it targeting just the CEOs?
It's all of them. It's yeah. And there's a quiz in there so they can even see how it's affecting their people. So this is for the Betrayal Recovery Roadmap, my most recent book. That's for HR, for CEOs, for team leaders, for managers, and just for anybody working in a company. If they're not sure, wow, is this really affecting my morale, my productivity, am I gonna, because I hear it all the time, I'm gonna lose my job. I can't think. That's what happens.
This sounds more widespread than we probably are aware of. We think about other things that are impacting our mental health. We don't think about betrayal as one of those things that's really impacting our mindset, our ability to operate on a daily basis. Why is it that we don't recognize the seriousness that this is in our lives?
I think we're ashamed. There's so much judgment around just the word. When you even say the word betrayal, it feels like such a sucker punch. Just the word alone, it's so visceral, right? And we're not used to it. We're just not used to talking about it. And that's why I'm so grateful to have an opportunity, to share it, because it's one word that has such deep impact on those that experience it. And it shatters your life. It creates a psychological earthquake where life is now, before it happened and after it happened. And something that profound, that shatters your body, your mind, your heart, needs way more than just thinking time will heal it, or just sharing the experience. It's way more than that. You need to move through the 5 stages.
So as someone who's teaching this and raising our practitioners, where do you see the future of the betrayal industry, I guess I would say, moving forward?
I mean, I'd love for it not to ever happen. That would be my number one goal. But at least if it's going to, there's a roadmap now that could shave off decades of someone's pain. So my intention is to have as many coaches and practitioners and HR professionals certified in our methodology, so that anybody who comes their way can move through one of the most painful of the human experiences.
So I'm sure you have hundreds of stories of people you've worked with. Is there just a story, don't give us a name, but just a story of someone that was so profoundly impacted by your work?
The one that just came to mind as you mentioned that, she was in her mid 80s, and she was in her mid 80s. She had a 70+ year digestive issue from a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It was like one of those. 70+ years she had a gut issue. 2 weeks into our program, she healed from a 70+ year digestive issue. That's what happens when you deal with the root cause.
Wow. I love to ask my guests this other question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I just want the PBT Institute and just to be the go-to space. If someone's betrayed, they just know. Find yourself a PBT coach or practitioner. Find yourself the PBT Institute in your country. We're going to have as many countries represented as possible, and get the help you need so you can regain your health, your life, your happiness.
So, Debbie, I have a surprise guest question this year on the podcast. Pick a number between 1 and 5 for your surprise question.
4.
4
kids.
All right. So, would you rather be the most popular kid in school or the smartest kid in school?
Smartest.
Why?
I don't know. Being popular was never a thing for me. It never was popular. Not popular now. I value intelligence. I'm always learning to grow. So that's my interest.
I love that. As we wrap up this, and thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast and really share this, because I think it's so critical, as so many people probably are dealing with this who are not aware. If you want to leave my audience with the key takeaway from our discussion, what would that be?
I've been there. I know how painful it is. And I would say, even if you have to say this a million times, it's worth it. Even though it happened to you, it's not about you.
So powerful. Where can people find you, follow you, and connect with you on social media?
Yeah, everything is at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com.
So they can find all your books there and all the projects you're working on?
All of it.
Anything else you got in the works that's your next project that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, well, we just celebrated National Forgiveness Day, which is celebrated every year on September 1st. I founded that in 2023. And the next thing we're doing is we're launching getting ready to do this, a membership program for our certification. So this way, once they're certified, how do they get that message to the world? How do they grow their businesses? I've been in business 34 years, so I'm sharing everything I know. Once they get certified, they can join that and be a part of it. So right now, anybody who's a part of our certification program is eligible. And it's just an exciting process to think that I'm going to share. If they want to write books, they want to do TEDx talks, they want to create national holidays or speak, I've done it. So I just can't wait to share it with all of those who have an interest in helping those who've been betrayed.
One last thing, I just thought about this. If there's someone listening to this podcast and they go, you know what, I want to become a counselor or a practitioner, how do they do that? Get training from you to be able to be one of those people that's going out there dealing with grief in the world?
Yeah, well, we have everybody who goes through our certification has been through something, because now they want to share it. But you have to be a coach or healer of some kind to qualify to be a certified PBT coach. And then you can be a doctor, therapist, counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist to qualify as a PBT practitioner. Same training for both. It's the 5 stages, but just a different certificate when you're done. But we want to get this certification into as many hands as possible, because for every coach or practitioner that's certified, all their clients and patients can have access to the 5 stages.
So what's the timeline look like for someone who starts the program and then completes it? About how long does that take?
Oh, it could be a few weeks.
Okay.
It could be a few weeks to a few months. Wow. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for what you do and for letting the audience know how if they have a passion and they want to be part of the PBT community and team, that they can reach out to you and do this. So thank you for what you do. I really appreciate your time on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Trailblazers and Titans. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the insights shared, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue bringing you the stories of the world's most inspiring leaders. Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and exclusive content. Join our community of Trailblazers and Titans, and let's continue to learn, grow, and transform our visions into reality together. Until next time, keep blazing your trail and striving for greatness.